Hey.
Wait, say that one more time for audio check.
She says she's situational, aware, size.
Okay. All right, here you go, Lisa. All right, gentlemen.
I hope you can record it.
So today's focus is on really pounding in some really good.
I feel really awkward.
Come on in. Yeah, actually, come right in there.
It just feels weird.
No,
So-
perfect. That's good. Now I'm facing towards you guys.
Yeah.
And you can push that chair or that desk up. All right, so for the next 3 hours, you guys are going to be rotating between 3 different locations, and we're going to be really hounding in a handful of wellness practices. And so this class right here is situational awareness, obviously, as you can see behind me. Now, as warriors, we possess unique skills and abilities. And as you can see on the board, that is because of my emotional control that I had to have overseas in some pretty stressful situations. Now, when I was struggling, it looked like detachment and numbness through my relationships whenever I was really good at being a professional alcoholic, and I was really good at suffering. I was really good in that blank space in my life between me getting out and me going to path. That's where I spend a lot of time right here, and that's what I burned through a lot of relationships with. Now, the reason and purpose of path is to give you the ability to thrive. And it's because of my emotional control that I had to have whenever rounds are coming down range and you're putting tourniquets on buddies and you're calling and everything else and the situation's getting shot to shit. It's because of the extreme over here that I'm able to have a level headedness and bearing and courage whenever my girlfriend, I told you guys the other day about her throwing that water. That's the reason why I was able to be that way. And it hasn't always been like that, but I get to thrive because I know what the opposite is like. Does that make sense? And like the difference between a superhero and a supervillain, like they both wear capes, they both have powers, but what's the difference between them?
Their intent.
The intent. One uses them for good, one uses them for bad, right? And that's, if you look at it, that's basically what this is. If we use it the way that we're trained, then, and we're not using it in a situation to where we need to be using our training, then it gets perceived as a symptom. Now, if we take it and be like, you know what, I can use my laser vision to either melt a building, or I can use it to dethaw the ice that's on the roads recently, right? So it's all about using these superhero powers, sharpening threat perception, attention to details, motion control, trusting on your fellow warriors. You can do all that, but you can put your other cape on that actually makes a fucking difference now because we're not downrange anymore, but you can use it to connect. And that's what today's about. We do that, that's what PATH is all about, is how to repurpose and about retraining our training. Retraining our training and making it useful again. And we do that by developing the capacity to be regulated. And we talk about regulation practices. And when I'm thinking about a capacitor or regulation, you guys familiar with like electronic equipment or capacitors and stuff like that?
But I'll follow along like I do.
Are you good? So the capacity to be regulated, right? So have you ever felt like you have been topped to the brim? Stresses of yesterday, the worries of tomorrow, emails, patients, family, kids, dogs, parents, life in general. Have you guys ever been stressed to the brim and looked like that? And it takes very little and shit starts going everywhere. Right? It doesn't take very much at all, and before you know it, you either explode or you become something that you don't want to be. You make a mess of what was previously a nice home or a nice relationship, and here it is, it's got your shit written all over it. And there's an opposite to that. Have you ever felt I gotta pee now. But have you ever felt completely empty though? Zero fucks given, don't care, don't want to be here, don't want to be there, don't want to exist, don't want to wake up. And if this cup was a styrofoam cup, and I was to blow that with nothing in it, that thing would fall right off the edge. And in some cases in my life, that was a very welcoming thought. The thought of literally jumping off the edge of something. Like, that was comfort for me at one point in time in my life. Now we talk about the capacity to be regulated. Not too much, not too little, just enough. Right? If I walk around with my cup looks like this, so now whenever life starts pushing at me and pulling from me, it doesn't overflow. I have the capacity to not flip out whenever she throws water at my face, and not flip out whenever there's toys all over the place and everything else. I have the capacity to respond to life as it's happening. Because the unique thing is that as long as we are here on this planet, we all know someone who's not. Thankfully we are. As long as we're, look at that, nice. As long as we're here, we'll call this life, right? Life is going to continue to pull shit out. Emails. Dog runs out the road. Dan's got a toothache. He may say something that pisses me off later. The cook may cook. I'm just kidding, he won't. Something's going to happen. But whatever it is, life is going to happen. And life's happening right now for you gentlemen at home. People are taking care of your shit, right? Someone's watching the kids. I'm not sure what you got going on at home, but someone's taking care
Hopefully
of
they are.
What's that?
Hopefully they're watching the kids.
Yeah, so both of you guys got kids. Yeah, so someone's at home right now, and they're probably stressed out right now because they're missing the other 50% of the team member, right? And that's just life. Now, if you notice, that starts pulling shit out of you. If you don't do some type of wellness practice, all right, meditation, disclosure, time in nature, archery, argument with the missus later, whatever it is, but you see the pattern. All right, so the key is to stay regulated. And when you're regulated, that restores two things that you control, which, do you guys remember what those were we talked about the other day?
That you control?
The two things.
Effort and
Yep.
attitude.
Attitude, yeah.
Yep, your effort and your attitude. Those are the only two things you control. And even that quote this morning from Viktor Frankl, everything can be taken from a man, but the last of two things, the last of human freedoms, to choose your own way in any set of circumstance and choose your own attitude. This man, as he was Jewish, and he was unfortunately a part of the Holocaust, but when the Nazis were marching the Jewish people into their imminent death, they could take the jewelry off their neck, they could take the tattoos off their skin, they could take the hair off the tops of their head, but the one thing that they couldn't do was take the smiles off their faces on how they decided to die. So why is it that every day sometimes we stub our toe on the metaphorical stool of life, and it puts a chip on our shoulder? Who am I to steal that joy out of someone else's life? I control my attitude, I control my effort. I said yesterday, there's two types of people: one that brightens up the room when you enter, and one that brightens up the room when you fucking leave. That is all up to you. That's all you have control over. So, and this week's about finding that regulation practice, whatever it is, to figure it out for you. Does that make sense? All right, so yeah, that allows you to respond versus react to situations. That's why you don't start turning the house into a Incredible Hulk like I used to do. If you would, grab your student books, and you guys can stay where you're at, unless you can book, obviously. And turn to page 122, and take a moment and write down what your definition of situational awareness is. Yes, now. Build my wellness practice. Hydration is a wellness practice.
Teeth, whiskey, yesterday. My son, he, I guess the cat ate his corpse, and he looks at me and he's like, okay, son, so we'll buy you a new one, I want that, right? And he tells me, can you get me mad? No, I don't want to get it. No, it's, you always get
Would you write down, Jamie?
Being cognizant of what's going on around you.
Okay. And what's can you grab that board? What's one way that how do you use that at home?
At home?
Yeah, or in public, or
Well, in public, I try not to go out in public that much. But, at home, I guess I would just like kind of feel everybody's vibe out, you know what I mean, sometimes.
Mhm.
And just see what kind of mood the wife's in before I start making jokes and stuff like that.
yeah, that's a very, very good way to use our situational awareness. How about you, Dan?
It's really dawned on me how unaware I walk around,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest with you, which is kind of ironic considering the job I do, telling people to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But for me, situational awareness is trying to be present in the moment, like with full awareness and understanding of my emotions, thoughts, purpose, motivation, all my senses and expectations. I would consider that kind of operating at full capacity.
Yeah.
And I think it's hard to do that at all times, or to even remember to be trying to do that, to be self-aware, situationally aware.
Yeah, sometimes it either stays on autopilot, and sometimes we can purposely turn it tune it off to be detached and numb from places too, to where it's not my problem, not my monkey, not my circus. I don't want to fucking deal with this, like not today. And then sometimes the complete opposite of that spectrum is hyper alert all the fucking time, even whenever there's no reason to be. You know, if we were to write situational awareness down into a picture, we would say basically our head is on a swivel, right? Situational awareness, looking 360 degrees. Either we are or we're purposely not. But and what are we looking for? We're looking out for what?
Threat analysis.
Yep, threats. So situational awareness is 360 degrees, looking around all the time, consistently, nonstop, 24/7, looking for threats. And I'll use a negative sign here to annotate threats. Now this is one particularly useful skill to have whenever you're walking down the streets in a combative zone, or whenever you're wearing the uniforms that we've worn in the past, whether if you're just delivering supplies from one AO to another, or simply walking the streets. This was great for me to have. I had to be situationally aware of everything that was going on around me. And if you consistently go out looking for threats, what do you think you're going to find?
Fucking threats.
Exactly. And we're trained to do that. And as long as I know that the guy next to me is also trained to do it, then we're going to be fine. It worked great one day in the middle of Iraq one time. There was an intersection that we came through, and there was no donkey there on my patrol. And then a couple hours later, no one came through there. And then now there's a dead donkey there that is extremely large and bloated. And it's not really humid over there. It's hot, and I'm pretty much aware of how long it takes for an animal to go through rigor mortis and the stages for the bladder to expand and everything else. And my situation awareness was saying, you know, that thing didn't just sit there and go through all those stages in 2 hours. That's someone placed it there, and there's something more inside of it than what's supposed to be. This is back in the cowboy days of Iraq. We lobbed a 203 at it, and sure enough, this was the most highly explosive donkey I had ever seen. Now, that's one way situational awareness that we're trained to help me over there. I fast forward about 5 years later, 4th of July, I'm headed back to the gas station to get some more beer and fireworks, and I see a deer on the side of the road, a dead deer. And I'm driving, and my situational awareness is I didn't see it there the day before, and I swerved to go around it, all right, instinctively. And it was very difficult to try to explain that to the police officer who was driving behind me and saw me drive around a dead deer. And for me to sit there and try to explain to an officer how dangerous a dead deer can be who's never been in any type of situation like that. Like, you see where this is going. I got a warning for driving left of center, thinking that I didn't get a DUI or anything, because I was also struggling not well at the time. But that skill works great in certain places, but it doesn't work well at home. All right, if we have the power, if you go out looking for snakes, you're going to find them. If you go looking for butterflies, you're going to find those too. This week is about taking what our training is and repurposing it. So, what if I told you to take your situation awareness and either turn it back on or redirect it to where you're looking out for the positives in life, what do you think you're gonna find then?
Positive?
Exactly, and I'm not saying that the world is rose-colored glasses. Ron Conley's not sitting here singing that song with rose-colored glasses, but
No.
I don't know. Oh, no, not that one. That's Patrick Swayze.
Oh.
The idea is not to sit here and demilitarize us. Because there may be that time in situations where you need to take control of that dimmer switch and slap it up because you need to take care of business. But is that at a restaurant that you're enjoying time with your family and wife and you got your back to the corner and you think of something to come through the door and shoot the place up? Probably not. Not 100% of the time. So the idea is to refocus and retune, retrain and repurpose our situation awareness to look out for the beauty in life. If you go looking for it, I promise you, you'll find it. If you look for ways to disconnect from people, then you can disconnect from people. But if you use that same skill to connect with people, then you can do that. This is one way that we can wear that cape and just repurpose that trait. Does that make sense? And this is inherently inside of us before we ever learned it. But is that, you guys tracking on that situation?
I think it's brilliant. I don't mean to keep, if it's annoying, it's just, it's
No.
what I got, but, I mean, I share this with my clients, but it's never like, I think it resonates, but not the way that you're sharing it now, that in the past I've explained it, and I felt, as a reason why I'm sharing it, like myself, I felt like we need to get rid of it and replace it, like, but this is so much better, that we can make, it's part of us, it's embrace it, and, like you said, make it a positive.
Yeah, repurpose it.
Repurpose it.
And this doesn't happen overnight. That's not to say, like the other day I told you guys, that van came through the intersection and the rear axle was squatting kind of heavy. And my experiences tell me that van is loaded down with explosives.
Yeah.
And I let it ruin about 3/4 of a second of my day. 10 years ago, it would have set me off for that entire day, and it would have disconnected any relationship I had. It would have put me down a hole to drink. I would have started missing my buddies I can't have anymore. All of that would have happened. But no, I use that situation awareness to then tie into what's next, which is what we call our self-awareness. To think, okay, are you allowing this to affect you all day? Or is this important in 5 seconds, 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 days, 5 weeks, 5 months? How much stock do I need to put into this right now? How much negative stock do I need to put into this? How much positive stock? What's going on inside of me? And like I said, that runs into self-awareness.
You ask yourself, not to interrupt, you ask yourself that? Is that like a mental thought you try to practice?
Yeah, I cognitively, it took to where like, all right, don't let it ruin your day, don't let it ruin your day. It used to be something to where I would verbally say, and then it got to where I say it inside my mind, like I do my mantra. I was like, it's fine, you're not gonna get blown up right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then now it's just like I see something like, and even in a blink of an eye, I'm like, yep, those were cool days. I was in much better shape back then. You know, I was this back then, I was that.
Yeah.
Like
Positive association with it.
yeah, exactly. Like, cool. And it's like, man, I wonder what that fucker's doing. You know, like you go down the line of positivity because I now control the gate of my own
I
mind.
like that. Okay.
So,
Thank you.
well, so now if you guys would turn the page in your books and we'll talk about self-awareness. Just take a moment, write down what your definition of self-awareness is. What'd you get, Dan?
Yeah, at first I kind of second guessed myself that I wrote, mixed up my self-awareness and situational awareness, but I think it's I'm aware of my physical and mental behavior in response to the environment or situation I'm in.
Yeah. Just like I was talking about at the stoplight, like, all right, how is this going? Like, exactly like you said. How about you, Jamie?
Being mindful of my own thoughts and actions and responses.
All right. And what's one way that you guys utilize this? Give me your definitions. How do you guys, we kind of give a definition on yours. What's the way that you kind of use self-awareness?
I don't know if it's self-awareness, but I try to like put myself in the other person's shoes in like a situation and like see how they're seeing my reaction to what they're saying.
Yeah.
And like how we feel about that.
So, Admiral William H. McGraven, he wrote the book, Make My Bed. I'm not sure you guys have read it. It's a really good book. It's just real short, real readable, especially good for Marines like us. No pictures or crayons, but still easy to read. Or an easy listen. I don't claim to be a reader. But he talks about in one of his seminars how on any given day, 24-hour basis, we have about 2,000 to 3,000 things that happen to us. Mm-hmm. Whether we run out of toothpaste or our toenail gets snagged on a sock on the inside, you ever had that happen? Then you got to reach down and pull your toe. You know, things just continuously to happen throughout the day. Some good, some bad, right? And I'm just going to draw the sine wave of life that you guys have seen a couple times so far this week. But so on a 24-hour basis, life is simply just happening. You know, some good lottery tickets, and then maybe you run out of gas. Maybe someone fender bends you, and then maybe, you know, whatever. Now, this is a 24-hour period, and as life is happening, and we're talking about the person before you, and if you notice, I went ahead and turned these back to negatives, because this is how we generally are before we come to Path, is we're focused on negatives. Mm-hmm. Now, if Dan and I are in a relationship, and I come home, and this is the pissed off version of me, you know, 6 years ago, we're gonna have this class right here, and I'm so hyper focused on the negatives, and Dan asked me, how was your day? Well, this fucking happened, this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. You got no idea, like I do all this, you got no idea what it's like, and you just have this negative annotation about how it is. And of course, that's perfectly accurate because you were trained to look out for negatives. And where do you think all those negatives that your thoughts and perceptions of the day, where do you think that they're resonating at? Where do you think they're lying at? Like they're resonating inside of our mind, which is affecting our attitude, right? So situational awareness is looking out to see what's going on. Self-awareness would be looking in. And like I said, if this is a struggling, not so well individual like myself before Path, then my self-awareness was full of negativity. Maybe some good shit was happening, but mostly I was hyper-focused on the negative because that's what I was trained to look out for. I was a professional asshole because that's all I knew to be. I didn't understand. I was mad at people that were happy. I was like, "How are you? What do you have? Like, you don't see the problems going on?" And so, with self-awareness, once you start to understand what's going on inside of you, then you can start making the changes. We talk about regulation practices. Going through this simple things like I would change my shoes after I was self-regulated in the Marine when I was still in the Marine Corps. I didn't know about it, but one of my squad leaders saw that I was, you know, my marriage was failing, and a lot of the things were failing inside my job. And he said, "Hey man, take your boots off, put them in the back of your truck." I had an old Tacoma at the time, and just put flip-flops on. So every day I'm running out the gate, that's something I would do to metabolize my stress and putting up with the dumb fuckery that happens with, you know, being in the jobs that we're in. And that metabolized that. And also physically didn't allow me to bring that to the threshold of my own home. And instead of listening to negative music, I started listening to Stoicism, right? I started listening to actually Beethoven, Bach, Mozart, a lot of classical stuff. That replaced Disturbed and Metallica. Nothing bad about those, but they're great gym mixes, but they're not that great to listen whenever you had a long day and you got a 5-minute ride from your work to your home, and the only thing separating your attitude from your life and your wife and your everything is the 2.5 inches thickness that's sitting on the door and the hinges right there. That's not a lot to absorb that, so you've got to do things. So slowly, I started to metabolize the stuff, and not just on the ride home, but throughout the day as it happened. So how do you think me coming through the home, Dan asked me again how my day was. Now, this is what I got going on. my day, and I'm looking up like, you know what? How was your day? I just noticed you did the dishes, thank you. Oh, I appreciate that. And I noticed you shaved today, thank you. It won't be scrubbly when I kiss you tonight after this module. All right? But, so you see the point that
How you doing?
you see the point that we're making up here, right?
Okay, no, I don't see the point.
But the idea is that using your self-awareness to understand what's going on inside of you allows you to connect with others and allows you to like stop for a minute and be like, you know what, maybe I need to take a tactical pause before I go into the situation. How many times have you gone into a situation knowing that you're already pissed off and it goes exactly the way that you planned it to go? And then who do you get mad about when it happens? Probably somebody else, but actually you knew the entire time that I don't need to have this conversation right now. Or maybe I don't need to have this next beer right now. Maybe enough is enough at this moment. Maybe I should revisit this a couple minutes later, or maybe another day. Or maybe I can think about it and it doesn't even need to happen. Maybe it's not even as big, as important as I'm making it out to be. Right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did you have a revelation there?
I mean, I'm just listening to you. Describe me.
Yeah.
And I just need to hear it.
And it's not something, tapping into our situation awareness and our self-awareness. Yes, we knew that they were there the entire time. And up until path, I didn't realize that actually I have control. I can turn some of this stuff off. I can metabolize some of these things, which will eventually allow me to be the person that I say that I am. I become congruent to where my words and my actions are lining up again. My audio and my video are once and finally giving the picture, the perfect picture that I want to present to everyone else of who I really am. You become congruent. And mastering your self-awareness allows you to connect more deeply with those that you care about. You know, like there was a long period of time in my life to where my ex-wife at the time, she had to be situationally aware of who was coming home. She was on pins and needles and every day at 4:30 when I came home, like I can only imagine her cowering behind the door, like what's he gonna be mad about now? Granted, everything was picked up, house was manicured, dishes were done, dinner was done, laundry was taken care of, dog shit was picked up. But every single day, my self-awareness would come through that door with a bad attitude, and she had to be situationally aware of who I was. And so this week's about using these powers to take control of that. Makes sense? On the next page, if you would, there's an opportunity to write down what grounding means to you, page 124. What'd you get, Jamie, for your definitions?
It's like calming down and connecting.
To calming down and being connected? How about you, Dave?
Returning from like an unregulated emotional state to my baseline, like my normal state.
Mm-hmm.
So like just bring myself down, like you said, to where I should be.
So we did this yesterday out there at the tree line before we released some arrows. And we had a moment to go through our senses, do some breathing, smell, sight, sound, taste, tactile sensations, and just even we touched on a 4-7-8 breathing a little bit, which we'll dive into that in a second. But grounding essentially is if that depiction I had up here of the sine wave of life, if you don't sit here and take moments to decompress and metabolize that stuff, then of course when you arrive home or your next destination, it's going to be a WinZip file of just negativity, and it's going to come out in verbal diarrhea or the sense of some type of however annex that you do it. Being grounded is something that we do periodically through the day. And I know as a commercial diver, being grounded is one of the most important parts of my job before I go and strike an arc and weld underwater. And I'll tie this together. But say, for instance, if I'm underwater and I ground my plate right there, I'm on some job site in the cage. If I ground right there and I turn over here and I go to weld, that has just put me directly in the path of electricity. And which would have been a small little arc or maybe just a tingling sensation in my knuckles, has now turned into a full-on 300 amp self-electrocution moment in my life. And the fillings are arcing, the helmet's having little electrical lightning bolts shooting into my neck, my joints are stiffening, and my welding rod, which I'm trained to weld underwater and stack dimes and make them look very pretty, upside down, backwards, blindfolded with sharks poking at me. But right now, my welding bead is looking a little freaking erratic, like that. Now, if I take my ground and take the time to properly ground myself before I go down, because I know what's happening next, or maybe I don't know what's happening next, but I know that if I don't take time to be grounded properly, then I'm not going to be able to perform. So now I come over here and I ground right there, and I go to strike my arc. I call topside, say, hey, make it hot. They take the big Frankenstein switch and they send me down 300 volts of good old direct current. Now that voltage is jumping right between here, and I'm able to, I can taste a little bit, but other than that, now I can sit here and I can stack dimes just like it was going out of stock. Now, that being said, what does this look like?
Look, compared to each other,
Yeah,
I mean, the top looks unregulated, out of control.
looks like those regulation sine wave boards we've been showing you all week. That's the reaction, unregulated, struggling poorly sine wave. And this sine wave right here is showing you that nice living in between the bandwidth. That's me taking time to be grounded. How many times have you guys been in a conversation to where you say something that's not congruent with how you feel, and maybe you revisit back in your mind like 10 minutes later and say, damn, I wish I would have said this differently. You guys ever said that before? Maybe you're in the shower later like, fuck, I wish I would have said this, or shit, I wish I didn't say
20
that.
times a day.
What's that?
20 times a day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those are little moments and snippets whenever we are not congruent and we are not grounded, and who we say we are is not coming out. Our audio and our video are not lined up. And that's a moment that looks like this, a complete deregulation and stuck in reaction mode. In response mode, that's what happens when you ground, when you're self-awareness of your area, when you're situationally aware of what vibes you're putting off. All right, that's what allows you to thrive. So, because we're only two things you control is what?
Effort, attitude.
Yep. Effort.
That's it. That's absolutely it. Nothing else. Try to think of something else. I'm gonna stop you right there, because there is nothing else that you have control over at all. So being grounded. Does that make sense? Being where your feet are. And that's not also something necessarily, you don't just do that at the end of the day. All right? You do that, you do it specifically when you don't need to do it. Like I said, you don't wait till you leave the wire to load your magazines. You do this stuff periodically through the day. All right? All through the day, you remain yourself grounded. Yeah, and again, there's that reaction cycle. Whenever you don't do that, you live inside the reaction cycle. When an action happens, you react, and then you judge yourself like, oh shit, I wish I wouldn't have done that. Or maybe like, honey, I'm sorry. Now you're getting judgment from her, maybe from her parents, maybe from her side of the family, maybe from your mom, your dad, or whoever it is. And then like, fuck it, you know what, now I don't really give two shits. I'm gonna go back to the bar, I'm gonna self-medicate, and I'm gonna isolate. And guess what? I'm gonna do this shit all over again. I'm gonna do this for 2 weeks straight till my bank account says 0. And then when I get more money in it from my disability claims and everything else, I'm gonna restart this process right back up. Viktor Frankl refers to this as as an existential vacuum. All right, that negativity of suck. All right, and being grounded is one thing you can do to break that cycle. Another thing that you can do to break that cycle is breathing. We touched on this yesterday. It was something as simple as a 4-7-8 breathing. just utilize this board. We're gonna do one of those before we go outside and do a quick walk. Not a quick walk, but another exercise outside. So, I don't like red. Red entertains negativity. Alright, so 4-7-8 breathing. 4-7-8. That's going to be an inhalation through your nose for a count, whatever your count is, of 4. And you're going to hold for 7. And then you're going to exhale through your mouth for 8. Alright? And we're going to do this 3 times. So I'll invite you to get comfortable, sit in a chair, and relax. You can close your eyes if you like. And just on your own, you'll breathe in through your nose. You're going to hold for your count of 7. Two more on your own. How do you guys feel? Relaxed? What about you, Dave?
Yeah, feel good.
I even feel like me, I'm kind of sitting back at the seat. I feel like I was talking quicker before, and now I'm just kind of like ready to play Call of Duty or something.
Yeah.
I'm pretty chillaxed. The unique thing about 4-7-8 is this is a practice you can pull up out of anywhere and use it. You can do it in traffic. You can do it in the middle of an argument, even when someone's not looking. I myself, if I have some modules that I'm nervous about, or if I'm just having an off day, then I can sit here and do 4-7-8 and hardly anybody pick up on it unless they know me very well. This is something that you can also share, unlike any other Xanax medication or whatever. This is something I encourage you to share with people, friends, family, especially around the holidays when the in-laws are around the table. It's also known if you do this up to 3 times a day for 2 months, it lowers your blood pressure. It's been annotated by science for that. And we talked a little bit about it yesterday. So, but this is one of those practices that you do before you need it. When you first wake up, a little 4-7-8, a little regulation in your cup. Do 3 of them in the morning, and then at lunch, walking down the steps, a couple more 4-7-8s, and then you'll find out if you're fully regulated and you got some stuff off your chest throughout the day. Then at nighttime, maybe possibly if you go to sleep, you start falling asleep, do a couple 4-7-8s. It's been noticed that it also helps with sleep. There's been times where I haven't gotten to the 3rd one. I've gotten halfway through the 2nd one. I was meditated, decaffeinated, and regulated, and ready to fall asleep. Did a 4-7-8, and I was out. And also for your smokers out there too. My parents, they smoke cigarettes all the time, trying to get them to quit. But there's been scientific data that shows like the calming sensation that you get from, like, if you imagine a cigarette, like, that directly mimics a 4-7-8. So it's not necessarily the nicotine per se, but it's the act of breathing in, holding, and then exhaling. It's putting your body, your parasympathetic system, or your autonomic system into relaxation mode. So, one more thing that we're going to do that's free is going for a walk. And not just a walk to get our mail out the mailbox, but walking with intention, walking with purpose. How many times has anybody told you that you need to go for a walk?
I try to do that when I can, yeah, especially the middle of the day.
Mm-hmm.
If I can, I get out.
Yeah, and not just to get the heart rate or the steps in, but to go for a walk.
Clear my mind, yeah.
And there's scientific data that backs up, and there's neurological science, and you may know about it too, but your brain synapses, it has, they lay dormant if you don't use them, and the act of walking starts to recreate new synapses within your brain waves, and it reconnects the pathways of thinking and fires neurons back and forth that have up until that point been dormant. And that's why you see a lot of these big Fortune 500 companies, when they hold board meetings, they walk. There's no tables, there's no chairs, there's nothing. Even back in the early 200s to 300s, there was a school called the School of Peripatetics, which is from the ancient Greeks, Aristotle and Plato, a couple other philosophers. It was just a big courtyard with a bunch of dudes with gray beards and funky sandals and bed sheets would literally just walk around and philosophize and think about stuff.
Yeah.
There was no tables, no desks, no chairs. Eisenhower, before even making great grand decisions to send hundreds of thousands of people off to their imminent death, before he did that, he would go for a walk. They even had to replace the carpet a couple times in the White House because he would pace back and forth, not just out of nervousness, but to walk. So what we're going to do is going to go for, and even, I think it was Nietzsche? If Friedrich Nietzsche also said, he's a German philosopher, he said, all great thoughts are conceived while walking. So we're going to put that to the test, and we're going to step outside and go for a walk. And you don't need to bring anything with you. Yeah. If you need to get a jacket, go ahead.